Alright, so we're going to finish up with the large intestine. So we've taken our food from the mouth all the way through the system, and now we are at the end. Literally. Okay, so large intestine. You'll have a lab video, but just in case you haven't watched that yet. This is a large intestine, and here is your ileocecal valve, which is where the ileum of the small intestine enters into the large intestine. So the food, the waste products are going to go from the small intestine into the large intestine, where they will enter into this area here. This is called the cecum, and this is kind of a pouch, and the appendix is attached to that. Okay, and so then the food or the waste is going to travel this direction, which is why we call it the ascending colon. It's going to take this bend, which is the right colic or hepatic flexure because it's near the liver. Then it goes across, so it's the transverse colon. It's going to take the next flexure on the left side, near the spleen, then go down, descending colon, make this S-shaped curve called the sigmoid colon, through this straight area called the rectum, like rectus femoris, rectum means straight, and then out the anus, where you have an internal and external sphincter there. Okay, this is the mesentery. So remember, we have that superior mesenteric artery, and the mesentery is kind of this connective tissue sheet that contains all those vessels. The other thing that I was going to mention, everybody always asks me what these little things are. They're called epiploic appendages, and no real clear understanding of what they actually do. They're just little fat pockets, and that's about all you need to know about that. Okay. So what does the large intestine do? Well, the residue that's left from the small intestine is going to go into the large intestine and stay there anywhere between 12 and 24 hours. Really nothing's going on there as far as food breakdown, except that the food that's being broken down by the bacteria in your large intestine. There are enteric bacteria, and so things that were not processed through the small intestine, some indigestibles, think like plant material, is going to be broken down by those bacteria, or they're going to try to break it down, like cell walls of corn and things like that. And that's where gas is produced. So as they're breaking down things in the large intestine, they're producing gas as a byproduct. One of the byproducts they also make are vitamins, and so you do need bacteria in your large intestine to help you get some of your vitamins that you need. And so what's absorbed in the large intestine is going to be the vitamins that the bacteria made, water and electrolytes like sodium and chloride. So you can try to get all that back. Whatever's left in the large intestine that you need, the vitamins, the water, and the sodium and chloride, you're going to try to absorb that back into the blood. The appendix, the jury's still out exactly about what the appendix does. It's thought to be part of the immune system. Maybe it stores good bacteria, so it's there. So there's an immune function possibly with the appendix. But the major function is just to store that waste and move it to propel it from through the large intestine to the anus so that you can get rid of it, and that is called defecation. You don't have to have a colon. If you have colon cancer, they can remove the entire colon. You get an ostomy bag where the feces goes to a bag on the outside, and you're just fine. You can take those vitamins that you're lacking from the bacteria. So the colon is a non-essential organ. If you're going to have to lose an organ, that's a good one to have to lose. So what can go wrong? So diarrhea and constipation are things that we typically think about being intestinal issues. So if things move through too fast and not enough water is absorbed, it's diarrhea. Moves too slow, a lot of water absorbed, it's constipation. Those can be dietary. They can be maybe an infection, maybe you got sick, some bacteria, something's causing you to have these problems. So those are two issues we think about as being large intestine issues. And also something called diverticulosis and diverticulitis. If you look at the large intestine, you can have these little pouches, these little diverticular pouches, and they can become inflamed. Things can get trapped into these pouches, become inflamed, become infected, and you get diverticulitis. And this can be a bad thing to have because these can actually rupture, and then you can have fecal material going out into your peritoneal cavity, and that can cause possibly life-threatening illnesses, and you can die. So if you have discomfort in the bowel and the large intestine, and you particularly if you notice that it happens after you eat particular foods, especially foods with seeds like tomatoes and strawberries. A lot of times those seeds will get caught in these pouches and get impacted, and then you'll get this inflammation. So if you do start to have issues like that, make sure you see a doctor. They can give you an antibiotic, figure out what's going on, maybe do a colonoscopy, and maybe you need to change your diet and make sure you don't eat things with seeds or things that tend to be not digested and can get trapped in these little diverticula. Okay? So the last stage in this whole process is to get rid of the indigested food, and that's called defecation. And so that's going to require you to have muscle contractions and also an increase in abdominal pressure in order to force the feces out. And so the way we increase abdominal pressure is the Valsalva maneuver, where we close the glottis, and that increases the pressure inside of our thorax and then abdomen, because the diaphragm is going to contract. So your abdominal muscle walls are going to contract. You're going to have your glottis closed, kind of holding air in, and all that increases the pressure on the inside relative to the outside, and that will help you expel the feces to the outside. The levator ani is involved with this as well, and you also have those internal and external sphincter muscles. So that's one thing that you have to learn when you learn to potty train, is how to do the Valsalva and how to gain control of the levator ani and those sphincter muscles in order for defecation to occur. All right, and that's really all there is to know about that. This last slide I put in here just as a reminder that you need to think of this as the overall picture from start to finish. Okay. So you can use this slide. I found this on the internet to go through each part of the digestive system and what it does. I'm not going to read it to you because I know you guys can do that, but I just thought this was a great slide that had everything that you needed to know kind of on one slide, which there's one in your book as well. There's a really cool one in your book, so just take a look at that if you haven't been reading in your chapters. There's an overall review picture in your book. And the last thing I wanted to say is this is our last organ system, and so as always, take a minute to think about this system and how it relates to other systems. So the digestive system and the skeletal system, how do they relate? Well, you need calcium for bones, right? Well, you can eat foods that are high in calcium. The digestive system will absorb that calcium to the blood, and the bones can use that. Like iron. Iron has to do with blood. You get iron in your diet. You can use that iron to make hemoglobin. Hemoglobin's used to carry oxygen. So you see how that works? So take a little bit of time because we've gone over skin, muscle, bone, nervous, cardiovascular, respiratory, digestive, urinary, reproductive. And so you want to make sure that you're taking time after each system and thinking about how these systems interact. I don't want you to leave my course thinking about these as individual systems. I want you to think about it as the whole organism, how these organs work together to maintain homeostasis. So again, take a few minutes, think about the digestive system and how it interacts with the other systems of the body. And that is it. That's the end of your physiology course, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.